Nobody, no matter where they were from, no matter how much of an East Coast snob they were about rap, nobody for a moment could deny that at that moment, that dude was on top of the world. The year is 1994 and hip hop has cemented itself into the mainstream. In this series, we'll be discussing why this year is regarded as one of the greatest years in the history of rap. From New York icons like Nas and Biggie to the arrival of Southern rap in the form of Outkast or UGK, 94 was one of the biggest years in rap music. We'll look back at these classic albums, sharing why they're so great and why their impact meant so much to the culture. All right, man, let's get to it. Why is Doggy Style a classic? Couple reasons. Beats and Snoop. Beats, because the beats are top to bottom incredible. Snoop, because he was the coolest dude that we had basically ever seen rap. Like, he wasn't the biggest star. He wasn't LL Cool J or one of these cats that just dominated everything. But nobody made it look as easy as that dude did. He was like 20 years old, all lanky and gangly, and looked like a million people that you may have known, except he was just a little bit cooler than all of them. We're not talking about the greatest rapper of all time. Wasn't nobody mixing him up with Rakim, but the vibes are immaculate from the start of the record all the way to the end of the record.
What was Snoop's celebrity status before the record and then after?
Well, what had happened was, after Deep Cover came out, then The Chronic came out, and Snoop was on Nothing But a G Thing, and then Snoop was on Fuck With Dre Day, and everybody was ready for the Snoop Dogg record to come out. And then the Video Music Award for MTV, Snoop was on stage. He got to present an award to En Vogue. Wow, you want to talk about being on top of the world? And then that night, him and the homies was riding around, and somebody got shot. It resulted in Snoop catching a murder charge, though nobody thought he was the one who actually did the shooting. NWA was called the world's most dangerous group because that's just what they said. Snoop Dogg seemed like the most dangerous rapper of all time because people really thought that he killed somebody. And after we got to the place of thinking that Snoop Dogg killed somebody, then we had music videos and he shows up with perms and braids and all these other things that America had never seen. Before this dude, there had been nothing like that. And what you had was a giant pop star, so giant a pop star that the dude's record debuted at #1 at a time where nobody did that. Literally, nobody did that. So what was Snoop going into the release of Doggy Style? He was a singular rap phenomenon, and we basically only heard him on like 6 or 7 songs. This record was released at the end of 1993, but it is still one of the defining records in 1994 because it was such a big deal. And the reception of it was instant classic. The Chronic got instant classic status. Doggy Style then got the momentum off of that. And immediately we knew this was going to be a record that we would talk about forever, in part because it was so provocative, in part because it was Daz doing these beats and then Dr. Dre getting his hands on them and producing them up to the next level. But they moved the culture, right? The force that was pushing the culture forward stopped coming from New York and for the first time fully and truly came out of Los Angeles, right? Where this dude's going on Saturday Night Live and the Tommy Hilfiger shirts that he's wearing become the shirts that everybody else wants to have now because Snoop Dogg had it on at that point. Nobody, no matter where they were from, no matter how much of an East Coast snob they were about rap, nobody for a moment could deny that at that moment, that dude was on top of the world. This was the other thing about the reception. Anybody who thought that they had never known anybody that was in a gang before, you couldn't say that after the Snoop record came out. And it's not like he was out here like looking like Monster Cody or like the scariest gang member you'd ever met. Like my brother used to talk about that. It's like, this isn't so much gangster rap as much as it is gang member rap. But I don't recall that many people so obviously repping for the set in videos before Doggy Style came out. So obviously throwing up gang signs and taking this into all kinds of places, carrying on something that started with NWA and led to Doggy Style, which was like, in the end, Americans, men in particular, white ones for this discussion, enjoy tales of violence and misogyny. And that's what these cats were given top to bottom. So when NWA talks about they used to go into their shows and look out and see 80% white dudes, they're like, how'd that happen? That's how that happened. And so next thing you know, Snoop is the continuation of this, except it was a lot more benign than that last NWA album, which was, you know, ridiculously ignorant. This one felt a bit more like a party vibe from start to finish. You got Murder Was the Case thrown in there. So, we're talking about the grim realities of street life, I guess, however you want to put it. But in the end, this record was a good time from start to finish where people were throwing parties and you just put Doggy Style on and that would be the whole thing. It had a sense of humor, crude though it may have been. But in the end, it sounded like fun with dope ass beats. And it was an across the board pop culture sensation.
Culturally, when this album came out, there were a lot of issues of the sexual violence and sexism that came from the record. You mentioned it more as a party record. How do you defend the way the album was portrayed by essentially white Americans?
Yeah, let me tell you something. It ain't my job to defend it, right? This is just what it was, right? Like at some point when you talk about rap, particularly in the 90s, you have to be kind of matter of fact about it and acknowledge the fact that a lot of things could be thematically problematic and also entertaining. And that's what happened to be the case here. It doesn't make much sense to ignore one at the expense of the other. But it's 30 years later, and Snoop is a gigantic big star. And the fact is, it's not really in spite of the things that we're talking about. It's largely because of them. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just telling you it's what happened. So here's the thing. There isn't a bad song on the record. There's literally not a bad song on Doggy Style. So like when you start talking about what are the best ones, you're really getting to the height of the height while also acknowledging maybe, just maybe, wildly problematic. Okay, but let's get started. Gin and Juice. Gin and Juice is a classic. No way around it. And it's kind of wild that it was played on the radio all over the place, considering some of what they talk about. But Gin and Juice, that one's on there. Doggy Dog World. Doggy Dog World's one of those that is your daddy didn't listen too close to what the lyrics were. That would be his jam. It's that good. Ain't no fun if the homies can't have none. Another problematic message that somehow women seem to enjoy when it is offered over that beat. I'm not saying every single woman, but I'm telling you this. When Ain't No Fun If the Homies Can't Have None came on at the club, the dance floor was packed and it wasn't all dudes. I'm not sure that's what I would want to advertise, but hey, do you, boo. But the best song? G's and Hustlers. For me, it will always be when those chimes start going and then that piano drops in and then that bass hits. That's the best song on the whole record. Will never stop being the best song on the whole record to me. Do 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 do. Like, oh, y'all boys wasn't playing.
You mentioned that this record debuted at the top of the Billboard charts, which is rare for hip hop around that time. I know we're talking about the year 94. How do you think this record kind of opened the doors for one of the best years in rap?
So the thing is, Doggy Style was the fastest selling rap album of all time. They sold 800,000 physical copies of that record in the first week. But what that does is it says more than just what's going on with Snoop. It signals that, hey, rap as a commercial force had already been building to a point where people had seen that you could sell a lot of records, but I don't think they really knew that you could sell a lot of records with hardcore rap. Like it did not have to be MC Hammer who sold a zillion records or Vanilla Ice who sold a zillion records. It was different when this is like straight up gangster shit and you sold 800,000 copies in a week. Oh, no. That opens the door for everybody to understand that you now have to pay attention to the rest of this rap because now everybody's looking for what the next one is going to be. And what it also set the stage for, which is very important about the year 1994 with rap, is it is a truly national party at this point. 94, you had acts like the Ghetto Boys and stuff come out of the South, but 94 is now when you get Outkast, and now UGK has their second record coming out. It's now a coast-to-coast affair. The map began to get filled in large part because that West Coast rap was the first rap to really penetrate super in the Midwest and in certain parts of the South. So that's our look at Doggy Style. We are going to go through more classic albums of the year 1994 in hip hop for the rest of this series. So subscribe, like, rate, review, give us 5 stars. If you only give us 4 stars, I'm inclined to believe you are a hater and nobody wants to be a hater in hip hop. Prize Picks is really simple to play. You can make your picks and submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. So make sure you go to prizepicks.com/Bomani and use code Bomani for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/Bomani. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.